Okay, everyone, we're just going to do a quick little ditty here on iron. And so to get started, I want you guys to focus on the screen right here. And so what we're looking at here is a blood vessel filled with blood that's carrying healthy red blood cells. You can see a red blood cell is just shaped. And in order to make healthy red blood cells, oops, let's go back there, you need to make a protein called hemoglobin, which is drawn for you right here. And in order to make hemoglobin, you need to eat iron. So iron is necessary to make a compound called heme, which is important for this protein called hemoglobin. And why hemoglobin is so important is that you can see here that oxygen binds to the hemoglobin, all right, which is part of the red blood cell. And then the blood delivers red blood cells to your working muscles. Um, and therefore, the red blood cells can deposit oxygen there. And so, if an athlete becomes iron deficient and develops iron deficient anemia, they no longer will make healthy hemoglobin. There won't be enough healthy red blood cells to carry oxygen to working tissues, and athletes will become fatigued and tired and winded upon exertion. So, that's kind of the whole deal to do with iron and what you need to get out of this. So males have a lower iron need than women do. Males need about 8 milligrams a day, and females need about 18 milligrams a day, much more, and that's because of blood loss every month due to menstruation. All right, so on our next slide here, I want you guys to be familiar with symptoms of iron deficiency anemia. So let's start off. The first one, the most obvious one, is fatigue. Okay, as I mentioned in the previous slide, feeling short of breath or winded, especially upon exertion. Poor concentration, increased susceptibility to illness. You have a weakened immune system, and you may feel cold more often. And so if you're looking at this photograph right here, actually it's a drawing of what healthy red blood would look like, normal blood. And this is the blood from someone who has iron deficiency anemia. So you see less healthy red blood cells there. All right, so how do you know if you have iron deficiency anemia? So this is very important. I often have athletes come in my office and say, Mrs. O, what is a really good iron supplement to take? And I'll say, well, why are you interested in that? They said, well, I'm pretty sure I'm iron deficient. I feel tired all the time, and I feel really tired at my workouts. I'm not able to work out as hard. So I hear those symptoms, and I have to dig a little deeper because there's many reasons why an athlete might be experiencing that. And more often than not, it has to do with fueling, not or underfueling, not eating enough food, not skipping meals, not spreading your food throughout the day, not having a recovery snack, and not hydrating well. And so those are things that are typically that I find as causes. And I want you to know that you just don't go and decide that you're iron deficient and start taking supplements. You really do need to have a blood test done. And we're going to test for two things. One is called hemoglobin, which we just learned about. And the other one, this is very important, make sure that you have a serum ferritin test done. And the ferritin actually tells us about the amount of iron that you have stored in your body. Okay, so if someone is diagnosed as being iron deficient and having iron deficiency anemia, we of course counsel them on what food sources would be recommended so that they could start consuming them daily to help increase their iron intake. If you have iron deficiency anemia, you are going to be typically prescribed an iron supplement, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But important for everyone to know and for athletes in general to know what are some high iron foods and then about the different kinds of iron. So we have heme iron, which is known as the best absorbed iron. And heme iron comes from animal food. So red meat, poultry, fish, eggs, these are all great sources of heme iron. And it has the highest bioavailability in terms of iron from food. And so we encourage athletes, if they're of course not vegetarians or vegans, to go with the heme, make sure they're consuming heme iron daily. Non-heme iron sources are found in plant foods, and non-heme iron contributes iron to the daily diet, but non-heme iron is not absorbed as well as the heme iron is. So this places, say, vegetarians at risk. They may be eating a lot of non-heme iron, but again, not absorbing very much of it. But we still encourage people to eat these food sources: raisins, other dried fruits, leafy green vegetables like spinach, whole grains, and fortified cereals. Okay, so there is a tip, a practice that you can do to help increase the absorption of non-heme iron, and that is to eat those foods like, say, beans. Legumes are a source of non-heme iron. If you have legumes and beans and rice, and you add a little broccoli, which is very high in vitamin C, to the meal, the vitamin C in the broccoli is an iron enhancer, meaning it helps to increase the absorption of the non-heme iron. So most students find that pretty cool that a food will do that. All right, and then lastly, we're just talk a little bit about iron supplements. Iron supplements are only prescribed for people who have been diagnosed through a blood test with iron deficiency anemia. All right, now if you're going to choose an iron supplement, you want to look for one that is called ferrous, F-E-R-O-U-S, ferrous sulfate. And so you probably would be prescribed to take that 1 to 3 times a day. I do want to caution athletes, you don't want to take your iron supplement immediately after strenuous exercise, so timing is important. Liquid forms may decrease gastrointestinal upset. Sometimes iron is hard on the stomach. Sometimes iron supplements, people complain about constipation. So often liquid supplements are an option. And then I do think you should know what athletes are at risk for iron deficiency anemia. These would be, again, women athletes because they lose blood every month, and when you lose blood, you lose iron. Distance runners due to something called foot strike hemolysis. Foot strike hemolysis is the destruction of red blood cells from your feet pounding on the ground time and time again when you're out for these long runs. Okay, vegetarian athletes because they may not be consuming enough iron, and then athletes that give blood regularly. These are all, again, athletes at risk for iron deficiency or iron deficiency anemia. All right, our next video is going to be about antioxidants. We'll see you soon.